Hello, everybody. You're watching the Mary and Joe show on MsChronicChronicles, Rachel Raw Truth's channel, and the Mary and Joe show on YouTube or on Facebook if you're listening. Please say hello in the chat. We always like seeing who's listening. And I must introduce my co-host, Marie Tarot 504.
Good evening. How's everybody doing out there? Excited about tonight's topics?
We're going to be continuing on our fantastic journey of mental health and addiction and all the things that go with that. And without further ado, we must also say hello to Tuki Rue in the background. Say hey, everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
So if you got your Joe and you got your Mary, then you're in the right place. Please join us. I'm going to move my little self over here, get the story going. Tonight is actually turn the tables on me as the host tonight. I am actually kind of having my co-hosts help me express this story, my truth, a little bit more in regards to my own mental health issues
Right.
in my family.
How you got here today with your opinions and your
Exactly.
feelings.
Go, please, please, while I move this over.
I am super excited to have you really release this story. I think that this is your life and you should be proud of who you are. I'm super
Right.
proud of you.
Well, and you've been a friend for since what, 2002 maybe, I think it's been. It might have been 2002, at least 20 years then.
Yes, that.
Um, Sounds right. Like, how old were we
I
back
don't
in
want
the
to think
day?
about 20 years has gone by that quickly.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Let's slow down a little bit.
No
Just a little bit.
kidding. Right. I mean, this story goes back a lot farther, though, than 20 years ago. But we can say that during those 20 years, my lovely friend Marie has literally heard, seen, and physically experienced things that are hard to believe are okay in a family dynamic, number one. Number two, I will be mentioning people that I will not give actual titles and names. I will be sharing some photos today and very briefly discussing some things about my sibling, little brother, and mostly because he's part of the story too. We're going to go way back from the ages of basically 1 to 15, and I'm going to try to tell this story in the quickest way, but in the most logical way as possible.
I think you
So,
need to speak from your soul.
thank you. I think I need to take a little nice moment and light my blunt, though. So if you've got one, please,
Yeah,
let's do this because this is going to be intense. I mean,
it's
and
a
I am just,
powwow.
I have no notes for this because if you guys have been watching me for 12 years, or if you're friends with me and listening, or if you've ever had an experience, and you kind of understand that you should, I'll tell you to understand that all of the things I have in my psyche and heart that I'm going to share tonight really truly I know happened to me. Not It's not my fault. I never was one of those kids who felt like a victim in the sense of like feel sorry for me, that shit. So this isn't a story I tell a lot of people unless they're extremely close to me in my life. And that's because it's really hard for them to believe I didn't hear it from a movie. It's just so insane. But sorry, I'm dragging on this beautiful joint. Oh my goodness. And it's a lot of indica, so I should be able to say this in a calm voice. I'm one child of two from my father and my mother. I was born in October in 1985. About 6 years prior to that, my mom and father were trying to conceive and couldn't from the early, almost 11 years of their full marriage. 6 years into it, tried to conceive and could not. And so by the time that I actually was even a glimmer of an idea, my mother and father were at the point of getting fertility drugs and trying to do all the things they could to even
Oh,
get
wow.
pregnant. Yeah. And so she was actually going for her first visit to go to the specialist because they had been trying for 6 years, or five at least at that point, because it was the sixth. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, um, when she went in, they gave her the normal P test in the 80s, and she was already pregnant. And she was freaked out because at that point it was just a mind fuck. Like, they had done the prayers, they were very, very religious. My father and mother met each other at church dance, one of those, let's get them all married here. Everybody in the room, find your lover. And where we come from in Louisiana, which this show does usually bring up New Orleans in some way, Louisiana in some way. My mother came from a Catholic background, studied religion, and was going to be a pastor, which is a crazy, I don't think it's called a pastor, but a female preacher. And but didn't finish her schooling. When she met my father, she was very much a believer and was enthralled by the fact that he was so religious. At least that's what it came off. Now, my father was probably, like, I think 5 years younger than my mother. And that was also something that he kind of threw at her, like, you weren't going to be alone forever, even though my mom never felt that way. She was quite the
How old was your mom and your dad when
A lot
they
of
met?
people feel like that.
I think she might have been like 27 or 28. No, that's not right. She was in her 20s, maybe like 24, because it was a while before. She was 29 when she got pregnant with me. So if you can go back, do the math. So, and then she got pregnant with my brother at 36.
And
So
you were her
go ahead.
first kid?
Yes.
Or
And
child?
no miscarriages before that. She really thought she couldn't have babies because if anybody's listening, and I'm sorry, Tukey, for too much information, but my mother had the condition of endometriosis and cystic ovaries to the point she'd hemorrhage and bleed monthly and be in the ER for years. So they were just like always like, yeah, they didn't think that she was capable of having kids because just having a period was intense. So and I suffered with the same problems as a child. So that's why I never thought I was going to have a child, because it just didn't ever really happen until. Anyway, so when my mother and father, and sorry if I cut you guys off, please stop me if there's a question. My mother and father were like this perfect, ideal marriage in the church and in a non-denominational Victory Assembly. I will hashtag the shit out of them. Fundamentalist, kind of overly what's the right word, tithe and more tithe. It was that kind of a foundation. My mother worked in the church at Victory, being that she had such a background with I think is it theology, I'm saying it wrong probably, but it's religious beliefs, and she studied everything. It's funny, she just stuck to one thing and was such a believer, but it was her core. It was what she fell for, even though she grew up Catholic, similar to your part of your family too, and so that, I feel like, made her believe that there was a higher power always working towards things. And I must bring this up because it's a lot of the reason that, like, she stayed in such an abusive situation, and substance abuse became such sorry guys, SA became such a real thing, and assault became a real thing in our
Probably because
family
of her
dynamic.
beliefs, right?
Yeah, she really, I mean, well, from the church side of things, and the way she explained it to me is that when her and my father even decided to start having children and she couldn't, she thought it was God's will and was completely okay with that. And he said she was broken as a wife, and literally. And so when she went to find refuge and counsel from the church, not a Christian, I mean, not a Catholic, a Christian, not like a group of people, not just like, the guy
But
behind the
looking
booth.
back, I mean, it kind of was God's will since she didn't go through the fertility.
Right. But this is the thing. When she went to them first, before she got pregnant, she really was asking the ladies of the church to give her the right to not want to be a mom. That was a conversation my mom had with me very young. And that's something I must say, because this is a situation where someone becomes a parent when they weren't really supposed to, or didn't really know if they should, and all the things. And I have no resentment. I think that's very important. And to know that this is a dynamic for the listeners to understand where I come from as an educated woman and an overly interested Southern gentleman, in the sense, Harley driving, man's man, I guess. What good old boy? Would that be a good example of it, Marie?
Um,
Backwoods. I don't know how to say ignorant because he wasn't at the beginning, just over time. But I don't know. What would you describe that
so if she was
Southern?
like 24, then that puts your dad at like what, 19?
Maybe, yes. It was young. They were married very young. And it was his second marriage. He actually eloped when he's 16 and got emancipated and married a wife prior to that. Which is a whole story we'll tell in a different episode. But yeah, he was already wanting that wife situation in that. I mean, he had my father, let's be transparent. He had mommy issues before he had ever met my mom. So when he met my mom, he treated her like do all the things plus be my emotional support too. And there's a limit in a marriage, just be going both ways. And my mom did not get that support. She literally married this man and figured out he was not only a drug abuser, a partier. I mean, at first she explained to me it was so much fun. They'd throw the best parties. They were the best uh parties for Christian folk. Like they made it fun almost till it was evil, like their parties were big. And it was because she could do that with the marriage at first when they were just without children, without whatever. At first, she thought it was a great situation until she saw he would drink and get violent or just be completely belligerent, like I
So
said in the
was he
last.
having violent moments prior to y'all?
Only to people outside the family. Until I came around, he then turned himself on us. He was not physical with us until I came around. So
So
the father, yeah, go ahead.
okay, so he wasn't physical. So you're born, and then like clearly you don't know, but what you
Right.
told,
Yes.
like, was it right away? Was it immediately
Within
daddy
3 years.
complex?
Within 3 years of me being born, he was already hitting her, um, sexual her.
So, I mean, just hypothetically, like just thinking about it, do you think that when he no longer was able to tear her apart about being a bad wife, a broken wife, when he
Right.
couldn't do that anymore, and just knowing what I know,
Right.
and maybe you'll get further in the story, and I'm not trying to say your story to you or
No,
anything,
you're doing
but do you
great.
think that maybe when he was pushing her to do that fertility stuff and he didn't believe that she really could, because I mean, if you look
Right.
logically, right?
Absolutely.
And so he's thinking he's going to tear her apart and put her through all of this, and then he finds out that she's pregnant, and she clearly was praying and doing the
Right.
thing, and she is very godly, and she was
Right.
questioning. Do you think that that infuriated him, and that's why he became aggressive like that, because then he no longer had anything over her because she was
Right. Well, I
her.
think it's part of it, but I'll say it in the more simple context is that he had to grow up. He had to take responsibility for his fuck ups. He could not have his mother, my grandmother, and my mother be able to, she wouldn't anymore give him excuses for behaviors like that because she was now a Southern 1980s mom to a show girl. I was a show girl at the beginning of like from 1 to 4, I think, did pageants. I didn't win any. That's okay. But that's a fact. And he started sexually um, touching by the time I was, as far as I can remember, 5. So I was sexualized in the pageants, and I think that that was easy prey for a unstable individual who thought, as the church raised him to believe, whatever you guys in the comments believe or not, it's a fact. What the church raised his mind as a husband to believe as that he was the king of his castle and we were superior to him. So And it went as I was daddy's little girl, because in the South, as a Harley father, that's how it was. So there, and he ended up being the one who babysat me from the very early ages. So my grandmother and him, because my mom was the breadwinner completely. I think that was it. He could never give excuses after of why he couldn't freaking live up to what a Metairie man that we even have experienced in our lives tend to have problems with, of stability with substance abuse. It started off really simply as like playing around with acid between them when they were not parents and early wed, and drinking and music and traveling. So like car, like going to Tennessee and camping, like that was their thing, or going to old plantations. It's when that frivolousness of their, and he told me from his own mouth that this is many years later, that what the problem from his eyes were, and I'm almost sounding like him. The problem from his eyes were is that my mother spent too much money and just disrespected him as a husband. That was his words. So sometimes he had to put her in line. That was his words. Right. And I think as what her words to me about the circumstances early, because what we talk about is he didn't just physically beat her, he would throw her against the wall with me in her arms. Like take me and her and throw us against the wall.
So, what was he so mad about? Was it something like an argument
He
that was
had
starting? What
chronic
would spike
pain.
this?
So he had chronic pain from a motorcycle accident when I was 3, I believe. He got addicted to pain pills, and in the 80s, they would keep giving them to you, but for whatever reason, he ended up being told, I think it was morphine is what he was addicted to. And then they gave him methadone and
Most painkillers are derivatives of morphine.
right. But what I understand from this is where the story is hard for me to explain, because I had a great mother. Even though she made some poor decisions at times, I had a great mother who was very active and wasn't a helicopter mom, did teach me morals and values. But I'll say, from her choices in allowing people to manipulate her, I mean, abuse is abuse. So I'm sorry I'm saying the word, but it sways your mind. And my mother was never involved with any of the drugs besides acid a small period of time. um she always liked cannabis, even way back in the day, and he never did. He smoked cigarettes and loved vodka, and so, and she didn't like cigarettes or
So
vodka,
they
so
would just
she liked wine.
like he would just come home and be like mad,
Belligerent,
all the time,
yeah, like
be
just
loud and things like that,
loud,
break
and
things.
to the point that, like, this is what I mean, like, it's hard for me to explain this, but if
He was just in
this
a
was a
bad
common
mood with pain
day,
and stuff.
yeah, like if he was having an outburst or a withdrawal or whatever the issue would be, he could be going to the homeless areas around Airline Highway and picking up a bum. That's the way that they described it to me, which I don't like those words, but picking up a homeless person, bringing them to our house and letting them use the bathtub and giving them some food and all, which is so normal until you use those people for drugs,
It's kind of
which is what,
wild.
and I remember
I don't
a
hear that
lot
very often.
of different I remember a lot of different naked men in my bathtubs. Like, that's something to say from a 6-year-old's brain remembers men before she knew what sex was. I
I mean,
remember him allowing so many. So I don't know if I was abused. Sorry. We'll say the A word. I don't know if I was aided by anyone else other than that one individual, but it was enough that his problem was enough. And this is where it's so hard for me to explain this, because you're gonna have to hold my hand with this, Marie,
I'm
because
here.
he wouldn't just do that. He would, in the middle of the night, my mother started realizing there was something wrong with me as a young age, like 6, where I'm in, preschool, writing on my page of my name, Ariel, like trying to change my name as a little girl because I'm just not wanting to know what's the fuck my life is. And that's what little kids do. They express themselves in different ways to ask for help from whoever they need it from. And my school noticed it. My mom was alerted. My father was not in that picture. So he didn't do those parts. He wasn't emotionally able to do the
So
parent teacher
the school
conference.
noticed that you were
Yes. And so they communicated with my mom, and then my mom brought me to a doctor, a therapist, and the therapist had a hunch I had been sexually abused. So she shows me a doll, and I point it and described in detail because it was a colorful memory. As colorful as it was yesterday, I remember it today. It's so colorful. And so I didn't know at that point that was wrong, what he had been doing in the bathtub and touching me, or chasing me around the house with what I was told were B12 needles, but I believe they were other hypodermic needles with who knows what substance from who knows what bum. That's a fact. But he would play hide and go seek. Anytime he got a needle, he would run. And that's I don't have a memory of the boogeyman. I have a memory of my
That's
father with
terrible.
needles.
I'm sorry
Yeah,
about.
man. And then by the time, and I looked it up, I did a ton of research tonight. I cannot find the article. I'm gonna
And I
call.
thought I went through things like, but it was minor compared to that.
Well, I mean,
So
and this is what I mean. Like, I don't go around telling people this crap because I should be a lot more fucked up. Like, I have my YouTube channel and my life to prove I don't make shit up, you know?
Yeah, you've conquered yourself, and some of the things
Well,
you've been
and
around are
the
big.
liver disease that I have, all of my specialists, all of my doctors and everything who, because hepatitis C is transmitted blood to blood. My mother had it and I had it. But my mother never used needles or anything. The only thing we did do between each other as children was share toothbrushes when we go camping or something, which isn't something I suggest anyone should do. But the way she described it to the doctors, and I can remember it clearly, is I'm a child. I grab the toothbrush and stick it in my mouth, right? All of us know babies do that. So supposedly that could have been the transmitter, or my very vivid memories of him chasing me around with hypodermic needles. And when the doctors would, evaluate me, psychologists, all, from even internal doctors checking if I was sexually abused. Sorry, I cannot stop saying it. All of them were like, she has been groomed for a while, like, meaning I really real I rationalized it and I normalized it. I had no idea what he was doing to me or around me was freaking
Yeah, a
normal,
lot of the time
not
you
normal.
find out later on
well,
in
you were a
life.
child, and it was normal.
Right.
That was your dad. It's
Right.
not something you expected to be
And a
wrong
lot a lot
because
of
it was
people feel
always.
guilty too, and that's
See,
normal.
this is the one
So
thing I can honestly say from seeing. Maybe if all of that was hidden from me and my mother had been the only witness to it, meaning the mental health issues, there's clearly some there, and the substance abuse issues, clearly something there. With all that alcohol addiction and everything else, and just emotional abuse that happened in our home. My mother at one point, like, honestly, I think if all that had not been shown to me, then I may not have the anxiety I do. I may not have the physical problems I didn't. They really believe, the doctors believe, that he probably not like chased me and injected me, but chased me and who knows what. Like, who knows, I have blackouts. I don't remember all of it. I only remember a little bit. And like I said, for a child's point of view, it's hard for me to explain to you guys listening, and it's just hard for me to explain this, but when you've seen that, you can really rationalize the same kind of individuals in your life.
yes,
I have dated
it's
a lot
very
of
easy to
psychopaths.
rationalize. Like myself, I grew up in a household where smoking and cocaine, and it was the 80s and 90s, and there was a lot of
Right.
parties going on, and you just knew when you were going to certain houses what was taking place. And there were kids, I was a kid, there were kids around, so it was very easy for me to rationalize that that was acceptable behavior because it had been behavior. Now there was, I knew from a young age that there was certain people that we didn't talk about it to, and we didn't say nothing, and so
Right.
I had to have rationalized that
But let me
it
ask you
wasn't
something
right.
really.
At some point some adult had to say, you don't say this, and I knew that you don't
Right.
say that, but at the same time I knew this was what was going on. And it was kind of, you have a way of making a kid think that they could think that I was doing it, because
Right.
they know how to condition a child to want to do that. Do you see what I'm
Right.
saying?
No, right.
So every
And
kid wants acceptance.
we
It's
had such a small family. My uncle is never had kids. He's um part of the LGBTQ community, and I'm not saying it right. Sorry, everybody. He's part of the community, and he isn't. He's out, but he's not public, and he's not somebody who would be like wanting to chit chat about all this. But my friends have been a witness to me, like trying to have that family connection besides my father, and my younger brother was always encouraged if he wanted to get to know our father, he could, but to like not to skip around in the story, there's no way else to explain it the way that I am explaining it right now without freaking everyone out. um like my father was to the point as he was coming from his withdrawals of the actual substance of methadone or what am I trying to say? What's not methadone? What's the other drug? Morphine. When he was addicted to morphine, I remember clearly, and my mother confirmed the story when I was like 12. I like asked her everything. Like, was my memory correct? And at that time, I can remember him sitting in like a recliner with a gun on his chest, and he'd hear squirrels on the roof. And we're watching TV, all of us in the living room, a nice conservative Christian family in a nice conservative Christian home. Not it's a stick figure home, beautiful home, garden in the front, the whole thing. And he has a gun on his chest and he is shooting the squirrels, thinking he's getting them from the roof, putting holes through our whole attic and everything.
so he was
Just
clearly
shooting.
loaded. Huh.
Yeah, no, he was
So
coming off of it and crazy.
so let me back you up. All right.
Yeah.
So the school notifies your mom.
Right.
And your mom gets you tested and she finds this out. Does she tell your dad when she's getting you tested, or
Actually, what happened is she confronted his mother first because she was like, something's going on, meaning my mama, and we'll just
yeah,
refer to her as that, my mama, that um you need to either have a conversation with your son or I'm going to, because I don't know how we're going to go about this, but I'm filing for divorce. So you either tell him, because he's too violent for me to tell him. That ensued my grandmother believing my mother was the worst thing that ever was existing.
So let me ask you, did she like your mom previous to this?
Loved her, thought she was the blessing of the earth because she loved her son. And was such a good wife. That she said that. Many things after. And I'm sure they're all, listen, I'm airing the laundry because I got nobody to say sorry to. That's a fact. And I've waited my life, made a commitment to come to this point.
So she immediately was like, I'm filing for a divorce. She knew immediately that it was your father that had done it.
Right. And
did she have any suspicions before the school notified?
Absolutely not, which is the worst part. My mom felt like she failed me as a mother, and I was not close with my mother. I would have never told her until I had a doctor ask me and me have to tell it to my mom too. We were not like that. My mom was a workaholic. She worked later as after the church when she needed more money to support their beautiful living room and furniture and all the other things. We had like wild parrots, like several. We had ducks. We had a beautiful like artichoke garden and the watermelons and the figs and all. It's like fucking Adam and Eve. All right, 100%.
Okay, so she tells him that she's filing for a divorce. I mean, I know,
and
I don't want to say too much, but I know the line. I mean, at some point he had to have gone off.
No, let me tell you what happens exactly next. The house was in my father's name, and in the state of Louisiana, I believe, at least at that time, he had no rights to get her out of the house. So my mother told him, and by the way, let him know he can't come home. That was lasted maybe 4 or 5 days, and my father would break in and bust the glass over and over and over and over in the middle of the night, through the middle of the day. He just went revenge, and he would break in, steal things, and leave the door wide open. I can remember it like nothing. A million times as a little girl, I helped sweep glass up and take the window. And so my mom at that point, within the first week of her telling him she wanted a divorce, she had to she had a gun in the house that was his, and she slept with it under her pillow. And she hid it constantly. And we just got ready every day for the crack, the shatter to the ground, the click of the knob, and the stomps. And there was never a hello, how you doing? We miss you. I love you. Why won't you take me back? Never, never, never. It was selfish. It was drugged out. It was whatever. And what I was told is he was hanging out the bars all over. And whether that's true or not, I don't even care. Don't even think about that part. I think about what he inflicted with his drug abuse and his insanity, that he thought it was okay for all of us. And then 11 days before that divorce was final, which the whole thing kept going on, I was kidnapped several times by my father, like literally taken out of my mom's vehicle at a stoplight from his motorcycle, going between lanes and stealing me, him
I
breaking the
mean,
window
he was
to the
your
car.
dad, so really, it's
Yep.
not like you weren't like, okay. I mean, it was
I
your
was
adult.
screaming, afraid of this man already, because he had already, I was explained to by doctors finally at that tender age of 6. No, 5. 6 is when we left. 5 is when this all went crazy. At that tender age, I was explained that's not okay. We're not going to call him my scary dad anymore. We're going to call him the bad guy, the monster. That's what I learned from 5 on about my father. That was the words. And so I never called him father again. I called him Rocky because that's his nickname. So if he's listening, peace be with you, frankly. But yeah, I mean, at the reality of that age, I
so,
became, go
so,
ahead.
so he wasn't living in the house when the whole Bizonnet thing happened.
No. Let me tell you about the
Okay.
Bissonnet thing, listeners, because this happened briefly before we moved away, in the middle of the night, hiding. And it was, I'm telling you, Marie, my mom gave me the date today because it came to me, and it's Valentine's Day, 1990. So on Valentine's Day, he came
So pause
to,
real quick. If anybody out there has a way to get Times Picayune articles that is listening, please
please help
contact
us.
us at
We need help.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rachel's email. I think it's Rachel Raw Truth, correct?
It's streaming across the bottom of the screen. Yes,
Okay.
people. Yes, please.
Please do contact us because we would love to have those articles simply
And there
and,
was
and
a
articles
news
from further back as well on when
video.
you're doing research.
Yes.
And that's one thing
Yeah,
that we
there
have
was.
a problem getting a
I
hold.
am going to contact the police department to see if I can actually get those documents. There should be there. That's public record, and I'm related to the circumstance. I
Did
don't
you
know.
have did you have some pictures of around this time or anything that
I
you were
have a video I will be showcasing later of the
okay?
day that the thing happened. It's kind of crazy. So, this is about a two-part story, but let's put it in the, I don't know, where should we start? I think should I talk about the bombs first, or should I talk about the choking?
Well, I think that we should
The
back
choking
up.
and
So
calling
he
police.
found out and he was breaking in and he was
Right.
kidnapped. So you said 11 days before
Before
the
the divorce was final, he found out. My mom found out she was pregnant with my little brother. But it's funny because she never intimately asked him to get her pregnant in those 11 days before the divorce was final. What happened was he broke into our house one night and he knew the divorce was going to be final soon. So he decided to rape her. And he told her, from what I heard later down the road, in her ear while he was raping her, trigger warning if anyone's listening, that you're still my wife until you're not. So, in my mom's eyes, and my heart's broken because she never told me that story. I had to find out from my mom's best friend's daughter, who was listening to the whole conversation. And she was much older, around 10 or 11 when the situation happened. She remembers very clearly, and was pretty fucking shocked I didn't know after my mom passed. So my mom tried to protect me, and if my brother's ever listening, unfortunately, that's the circumstances to his story. And it's a heartbreaking one. So my mother, within maybe 2 months after she found out she's pregnant, was so depressed. I don't remember a time that my mom was pregnant and happy with my little brother. It's a very strange memory. In fact, she quit cooking she just decided to, she had the money to, she was working at a law firm, to just eat out at Piccadilly all the time. We would eat out there every single night. I can remember it like it was the coolest thing in the world because I was a kid, you know,
Right.
but
You got
she
you
couldn't do it.
did.
She couldn't cook. She couldn't do it. She felt so betrayed by her circumstances. While she was pregnant that entire time, he still kept breaking in. He just never touched her again after the divorce was final. So she was pregnant, divorce is final. We're living in that house still. And at this point, she has my little brother. She's mopping the kitchen floor, getting rid of things. You know, she's trying to do the nesting thing before she has him. And she's mopping the floor when her water breaks. And so that was interesting. She didn't call 911. She had contractions and said, get in the car, and drove herself with me to Children's Hospital. And if anybody's listening, just digest that. Just digest that. I'm sure there's plenty of other women who have done that. But like in a circumstance that you don't know
Children's
what
Hospital's kind of far if you think about it.
well, we lived in Bissonnette, so we were around the block, but you know what I'm saying.
Side?
Yeah.
Okay, like
Yeah.
okay.
The yeah. On the West Metairie side of it. But anyway, so she drives herself. We are there. The epidermal you know, the what's the thing they put in your back?
The
It broke in her
epidural.
back. It
So
broke
were
in
you
her
in the
back.
room when your brother was born?
No, I wasn't. She was alone.
So where were you?
I was in the lobby waiting by myself. Then family showed up later. My mom was very alone through the entire circumstances. In fact, my grandmother, my mom's mom, she had no support. So imagine the mental illness she's going through, the depression and whatnot. She's having a baby by herself. Neil's breaking her back. All the things, okay? And I'm just trying to be the strong. I did a lot of the adult things that you probably shouldn't have done. Just I was able to handle it. I didn't even think it was any strangeness. Like I had snacks sitting there alone. But the family told her because my father was so violent and abusive and scary, they weren't welcomed to like she didn't want to be around if there was a chance he would be around. So my own mom's mom was like, fuck off, and left her just due to the circumstances. I can't say that's the nicest way to handle things, but that's the Italian German way they did it. And there's several family members that are like that. So if you're listening, guys, we all know, high five. Like it's just the way it was. And she was harsh with my mom. So she was alone on that. And the only friend she really had was her best friend Karen, which is the friend who'd explained everything, daughters, you know, anyway. And she was trying to convince her to stay out of that house up until the birth. And she didn't listen. And so when then she did have my little brother, we were all in Miss Karen's house for a few months because she's terrified. But yet the depression was so bad for my mom because she didn't know what to do. Like she felt trapped in that circumstance that like she literally would say out loud, you know, I don't know what to like, I don't know what to do. And I got pneumonia at one point, right before it was like we were staying with my mom's friend for a while, 2 months maybe, in between deciding what we were going to do. My brother maybe was like, I don't know, 4 months old. So yeah, a couple of months. And I had pneumonia. Very bad. That's probably why we went back home. I got sick. We're in this living room and it's snowing. So I got to look up the information when they had that snowstorm, but it had to be wintertime when we moved to Colorado. But this is where my entire situation with Colorado changes. And it's so hard to explain the story because people just
Wow,
don't
that
believe.
must have been a big deal moving to Colorado.
Well, let me tell you how it
But did
happened.
the
I had
Were you,
visiting thing
were
pneumonia.
you
happen before or after? I thought
No,
that was
no. Let me tell you. The day I got pneumonia, I was crazy, like sick crazy, right? Vomiting, all the things, like shaking. And I remember my mom taking the blanket and wrapping me up like a little burrito and putting me in her lap. And she was crying and she's feeling horrible. Like she's got a newborn baby. She's breastfeeding. The whole situation's crazy, right? And she, I think as a mom, from my perspective now as a mom, I believe that she was like, I'm done with this, all of this. Like, we got to get away from here. This can't be how, like, I don't know what she was thinking. Maybe PTSD in the moment of like, is he going to show up? Like, how long can I just sit here and deal with this scary feeling, you know? And she pulled out a map that we had underneath the table. It was one of those 1980s glass tables. I will never forget the thing. But she pulled out this map, laid it on the table. It was the United States. And she's like, Rachel, we're going to play a game. She's crying and says, close your eyes and make a circle. And I just didn't know what she was telling me to do. And I remember she didn't explain it. She just took my hand and was like, make a circle. Okay, make a circle. Now stop. And I stopped and we hit Denver. And she booked tickets with the last bit of money she would have, that she ended up quitting her job that following week at the law firm down in Portrush. So I don't know what the heck it was, but I'll find out. I'll update you guys because it's worth sharing the details.
And did your dad know that y'all were moving?
Nope. In the middle of the night, a few days prior, like I said, a few days before, this is how quick my mom did this. This is fact. So she flew out there or took a train. I think it was a train, or flew out there to Denver, got a job in Denver, flew back home, quit her job less than 2 weeks. In that less than 2 weeks, we had a garage sale in the morning. And if you remember garage sales or have ever had one in Metairie, they're insane. There was loud banging at like 5 in the morning. People camped out. It was not a joke. They were banging because my mom put in the ad in the Picayune, you know, everything for sale. She just hoped that Mama wouldn't see it, right?
Right.
At 5 a.m. in the morning, all these people bought everything out in probably 30 minutes. My mom's, and I was not told this was happening. I woke up and was just like, what? My Barbies were put in boxes right in front of me, like out of my bag that I thought I was leaving, because she told me we were moving, but I had no clue. I had a pink bike. She's like, oh, that kills me. I'm sorry. But I had a pink bike, and my best friend, Hannah, her mom was notified we were leaving, and she's like, I'll come by and buy as much as I can. She bought oh, this is so weird to share. Hold on. I gotta light this joint. Sorry, guys.
No,
My
it's fine.
mom's
Was
my
your
mom's best friend, one of her best friends that was friends with Carrot, Peggy. I hope she's listening one day. She was a good woman. She knew my mom was struggling, had to leave. She knew all of it. My mom only told a few people because we couldn't let my father know. And she called Peggy and was like, listen, I'm having a garage sale this morning. Bring Hannah over. Tell her she could take whatever she wants. And Peggy goes, I'll hold on to whatever I can for Rachel. And she did. She held on to a lot of stuff until I was later in life I could get back, which is so weird. I have the Barbie house right now in my storage that Hannah saved for me till she was like 15.
Oh wow,
And
that's
yeah,
awesome.
man. Yeah.
That's real friendship.
Right, man. Like,
I
and it
love stuff
wasn't
like
their
that.
fault.
There's always
They
light
used
inside of stories too.
right. They owned the awesome playhouse playground thing that was right by Chuck E. Cheese that got, or no, it wasn't Chuck E. Cheese, it was across the street. It's where the splash gun thing, whatever, on the corner of the ramp is, on the way to Best Buy. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? They owned that place. That's who Hannah's family was. And it was an amazing thing because we would have a lot of great childhood moments in that place. It was big, you know? And I think I'm getting it confused. No, they took some of the equipment and put it over there. They did. It was the Chuck E. Cheese building, like Playhouse Funhouse or something like that. I'll find out.
Yeah,
Anyway, my
I remember
father
that.
started going into that building and harassing them and asking, has Cindy come around? Like, it's a Lifetime movie, Scary. He was doing that, and I wasn't allowed to hang out with Hannah anymore after that. But Hannah did what she could in her life, even though she had nothing to do, or honestly even understanding, because like when I was 13 or 15, I think it was 13 when I got it back, she told me to my face, my mom never told me why I had to hold on to this stuff. I just loved you. And she would send me things. We were not PayPal, pen pal friends. I mean, you know, it was a weird thing because, and bear with me, listeners, like when you're dealing with that kind of stuff and you're just like, I don't know why, but this is life, I guess. Like, I moved to Colorado in the middle of the night. She boxes one giant wardrobe box with everything we owned. One wardrobe box, the one that comes with the little bar, a U-Haul box, and she shipped that to Denver.
Mhm.
She found an apartment
Mhm.
within hours of us getting there, which it's an odd situation because she came on a flight, she got the apartment, had the stuff shipped because I think Karen might have been holding the box, but ships it over to Denver. And me and my cousin Tammy, which I will get her on the show. She has already said she wants to tell the story that concludes this one because it's freaking insane. She was 19. She's my only cousin that I have that my mom kind of, in a way, raised because there was other family members who were alcoholics and whatnot in our Italian family. And she was just there for her. And Tammy uh, ended up, and I don't mind saying her name because she wouldn't mind sharing it herself, but Tammy ended up driving my mom's vehicle with me and all the other things that are breakable in from the house that we left up, obviously, and then went to that apartment building. She didn't even know where we were going to be living. She just knew she was going to take the risk, leave Louisiana, and go to Denver to an address that she's going to meet her cousin, you know, and because I'm her second cousin, and be there, anyway. And a month after she moved in with us, she felt so homesick for New Orleans, like it does for you, all of us. She wrote a note to my mom, and it wasn't mean, it wasn't whatever. She wrote a note, and she snuck out in the middle of the night out the window and took a bus home. And it was a horrible
Dang.
thing because, yeah, and I have no ill will, and neither does everything's copacetic. It's just that it's one of those things when you deal with family,
Tough times for sure.
right? And these are people that she was 19, and that's the way she describes it to me, is like, I was 19, I was like, I'm gonna be a nanny. Like, shit was gonna happen. She was gonna take care of us while my mom worked, and she would maybe have a job. It wasn't even her lifestyle. Like, she was such a New Orleans woman. And anyway, she had, it was like, kind of what I can explain it is why I don't share my story with everybody, is that I don't want people to just see me and see like the things that happened to me. Fuck that, man. No. You know,
Right.
fucking see me.
Yeah, you do a
Right.
lot of really cool things with
Oh,
what you
thanks, man.
had and what you want
Well,
to do can come true.
right.
You know,
No, but I feel like
you're a
that's
good
what,
person still.
thanks, man. I appreciate that. I mean, and the thing about it all is that over
We
time I
all we can
kind of,
reinvent ourselves. You know.
well, I don't relate to my father other than in the creative ways and in the, like, I can make something out of nothing. He's creative in that way. My mother was mental. I'm very mental too in that way, not in a bad mental,
I think we all are,
but
all human.
it's just the sad thing is that politics and doctors and corruption, and I can say it like that. Politics, what am I talking about? New Orleans politics is how my father never got in trouble, even with proof that he had done things. Corruption, money gets you through anything if you have a good attorney, especially in the 80s. And denial is something that I got my entire life from the grandmother I mentioned and the uncle and the other people. Everybody doesn't believe the story. Nobody believes it. My mother only got back
But
in
they have to
touch.
believe. So after y'all left is when your dad lost it.
No, he was actually in La La Land after that. You know what he though found? Okay, so what did he lose? Let's talk about it like that. Okay, good example. I'm sorry. Thank you, Marie. He broke in the next time, saw that the house was empty, including curtains gone. Holy fuck, motherfuck, what the fuck? And she said she never locked it that last time, which I think is funny as
He
hell.
breaks in and the door's just not even
Yep. Right. Great moment.
interesting.
Stupid
What a
ass. I
turn of
hope you can hear
events.
me. Dumbass. Anyway, he breaks in, and into the kitchen he walks, and he walks through the house, but he walks into the kitchen and there's a box on the ground. And the box on the ground is one of those, like, I don't know, Macy's, Dillard's clothing boxes, right? Like a little two-piece thing. And inside was all my artwork. All my kindergarten, all church work, artwork, which a father should pick up and love, right? My mother told me that she left that in the middle of the kitchen for him to either really care or for Mama to appreciate that she knew she loved me. And she didn't want to make her completely feel like she was completely heartless. He walked into the garage, and I have to back up because I never told the story about the bombs or anything yet. Sad. He walked into the garage and saw that his Harley was still there. But none of his clothes were there. Everything else was gone. My mom sold everything. The rest of the house is empty. It was clean too. She cleaned it for him to sell if he wanted.
Wow, that's actually
Yeah,
kind of a nice gesture.
right. My mom,
In a way,
she
after all
told me
that,
later that when she saw Waiting to Exhale, where there's a part in the movie where they burn the clothes in the driveway and she just walks away, my
she just
mom was like,
walks
she did
away.
it better. She's
Like
like,
the
she
bigger
did it
person.
better. Right. And so let me back up to the story that probably is why my mom decided to leave town. It was two incidents. I have video footage for one, and the other I have to find the criminal documents or actual news reports because they do exist. The street I was on, and I have featured my old house before, and the house is already sold, so it doesn't matter. But this street Bissonnette is like maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks. It's a long block, but it's a long street, okay? And the first incident that scared my mom and me was on I'm not sure if this is the Valentine's Day or the other one, but I remembered this date and it's means something. Uh I think it was Valentine's Day. He was coming to visit me. Yep, that's what it was. He was coming to visit me on a visitation. He had lost his visitation after this incident right here. He was drunk when he came or high, who knows what. And he was banging on the screen. My mom would lock the screen but look for him, right? And he would bang on the screen, but he was banging like, I'm going to break that fucker. Why'd you not let me in right away? And she says, hold on, let me unlock the door. He breaks into the screen. I guess she did that because he's breaking everything. I'm now remembering. You know, God. But he breaks the screen in and he immediately goes to start choking her. And then she goes to call 911. And then he takes the electrical or the cord that's along the it's been a long time, people, since we touched a cord. The cord that's attached to the phone, wrapped it around her neck and started to choke her, and she started to pass out. And she was screaming at
That
me,
sounds
call
like something
911.
out of a movie.
It's fact. I have a video of her. She recorded it after the incident of what looked like the house, and she, in her
This
calmest
could have
voice
really
she
turned into
could.
something even worse, you know? That's
Oh,
crazy
it
how
gets worse.
things
Let me
just
tell you. So he didn't finish that. I think initially he came after her. She fell to the chair. She might have repeated the story in this video. I'll have to review it. But anyway, she fell to like the recliners that would rock, fell to a chair, and he started to yell at her. He picked up the lamp and threw it at her. She ran. That's how it was. She ran to the phone and he wrapped the cord around it. It was one of those long cords. And she started to choke. He ripped it out of the wall. The phone could not call 911. She started like desperately telling me as I was standing at the door scared, the screen, like a 6-year-old little girl in a ball, but not on the ground, standing with my hands under my chin, like, what the hell do I do? And I'm like, Mom, stop, Dad, stop, what the fuck? I'm not saying what the fuck, but
Yeah.
and the she says to go get help, and I run across to the next door neighbor and bang on the door. Now, I'd never talked to this guy, and I found out much later that he was a pet, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I ran, knocked on the door, screaming, saying, my mom's about to be killed. I need to call 911. They called 911. He ran out the house, right? Ran out the fucking house. That's what got court order of no visitation anymore and a restraining order. That was when it became real. I can probably get those documents for real. But then the next time that got us to decide to leave town was literally, in no exaggeration, I think it was a Sunday. Maybe I don't even know when this was, but it was a Sunday because we were in church clothes. I remember that. We were getting ready to leave. You know, you shut doors, you turn off lights. And if your parents out there, you probably tell your kids to do the same shit. My mother tells me to shut the garage door, and I go to shut it, and I see all this black stuff fall out of the doorknob and onto the floor, like enough that it's too weird. And I'm shutting another door that's a side door, and there was dust on that door.
Wow.
And right. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I don't know. I'm a fucking 6-year-old. And I remember being like the girl who's like skipping through the house, like toot, 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 and I'm shutting doors and seeing dust and walking out to the front door. And at the front door, I go to slam it and see that too. So there's 3 doors that I saw that had it. I go out to the car. My mom is waiting for me. And I say, Mom, there's dust in the door. And she says, what? I said, there's black dust in the door. And she goes, wait a second, turns off the ignition, walks into the house, looks at the dust at all the doors I say. She goes, oh, sweetheart, you did a good thing. Good girl, good girl. Go sit on the couch. Mommy has to make a phone call. She called 911. They brought the bomb squad out. They came and tested it. It was gunpowder on all the doorknobs. They bring the dogs because after they tested and knew it was a fucking gunpowder, they brought the dogs, the bomb squad dogs. They came and they went into the backyard. I had one of those plastic playhouses that you like, you know, your kids playing. There's adorable. It was like the light colored one, a little girl's, I guess. I don't know, something. Anyway, I remember it was like a beige color with the colorful shutters and stuff. And they found an ice chest with cash rolled up in Ziploc, so it was separated in the ice chest with also separated Ziplocs of dynamite ready to go. So he had buried in a ice chest underneath my playhouse enough dynamite to take Bissonnette off the map.
Wow.
And so that's when I say corruption is real. He got away with all of that and continued to be a successful business owner who actually works with the police department on the North Shore.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
interesting.
Story in itself.
So I haven't spoken to him since probably, what is it, 2012 now? And it was when my little brother went missing, and he was the last person he was with. So at the time, I really suspected my father of a lot of things. And it went on for 8 years that I had no way to really know if he had done something. I had nightmares we're not going to go into because thank God they weren't real. Right. But I really thought he was the one because when I had been in his house, there's no mattress in his room, and there was just a spooky suspicion of what the fuck happened. And there was all these things wrapped around the room, like as if his belongings were all around the room, like where he left them, like a shrine almost. He had his baby pictures and everything. And when I went to see him, he was like, take all of this. He didn't even want to keep
So
it.
was like the money a setup? What was it all about?
What
Was
do you
it like
mean?
how he hid his money?
What do you mean about money?
Oh, I
What do
thought
you
you
mean?
said that they had dynamite and money.
Oh yeah, no, that money would have been him fucking taking it out of the ground to get out of town if he fucking blew us to the ground. I believe it. I fucking
Oh,
believe it.
I thought it was all in one spot.
It is in one spot, but he's psycho. He would have
Oh,
ignited the whole house through those doorknobs. He had made a fuse in the doorknob.
oh my gosh.
Right. And he used to blow up fish and sell it to the fisher. You know how they used to do that? Do you know about
Yeah,
that? It's a fact. That's how it's illegal now, but
there's a
he
shot
did it for
where they put
years.
it
He was
in the water
right.
with a dynamite.
So, like, I don't care if you guys believe me or not. I don't give a fuck. I've been dealing with that my whole life. The story has never changed, right, Marie?
Correct.
And when you spoke to my mom and got to know her as a person, I mean, it is surreal, me and her and everybody, besides my little brother, because he's been the most affected by all of this, I think, quite literally, mentally.
Yeah, it's not easy
No.
to live a
His
life.
circumstances I won't disclose here, but we'll just say he's in another world and it's not drug induced. So it's best way to put it. And I don't know, like I don't speak much about the A word. I don't talk about the SA word much because it is traumatic for me to be like, yep, that was my parent who thought it was okay to do that, you know?
Right.
They told me that my scoliosis was probably effect to a trauma and not effect birth defect. So I probably had all my surgeries and pain and my entire pain right now, neuropathy and everything, my whole life, all the problems, because he threw me and my mom against the wall when I was less than 2 years old. So I don't feel
That's
like,
true.
right. I don't feel like I have to, what's the word? What would be the word? Protect him? Because I feel like whether it was mental health that allowed him to make those decisions to hurt people in his radius, or it was the substances, I genuinely believe like they made me decide not to use alcohol in large quantities. It made me decide never to be a pill popper or belligerent and drive crazy or be silly, you know, like I don't know.
It
That's probably
definitely
why I'm
don't
so
assault
square.
people, or like plan to do violent things like that. It's just not.
I
It's
mean,
not good
I
for even him.
right. Okay, so this is the interesting part, and
Not anybody else.
maybe I'm putting it in a strange extra here, but I think for in case he ever does listen to this, I have every right to say what I'm about to say. I think, karma is a real thing. So in the situations he's went through in his life, like a couple of years ago, 6 years, 5 years ago, 5 years ago, he had not had a motorcycle for a very long time. And then he decided to get a motorcycle. And the night he got the motorcycle, he decided to get as drunk as possible to feel like he had been the old version of himself with the motorcycle, which is just scary to think about when you think of that. But he did. He got
Yeah.
trashed and he got on the motorcycle and thought he was young, free soul. He's 50 something years old at that point.
Yeah, living
He's
fast.
55. Right. And he's like Harleying it up in his head, like probably listening to the tunes on his cell phone, getting amped up, like walking in a dream. And he hit within the first 15 minutes of driving out of his driveway, he hit a woman straight on with his motorcycle. And he was in a coma.
Wow.
Right. He
Did
was
he
in a
take
coma.
me like let? Who taught him how to
She
drive a bike?
survived, but she thought she was going to owe him everything. He was in a coma for maybe 4 months, I think it was.
Oh my
And
gosh,
Marie
that can
remembers
change
that.
people supposedly.
Yes.
Please give your 2 cents. I'll elaborate after.
I mean, it
What
was
do
just,
you remember? Because you were like giving me advice to go handle it. And I was like, fuck him. Remember that?
yeah, but I mean, I remember Momo was freaking out. She was like on her own little thing.
Well, because he had assets. And that's the way our family. See, this is the thing. I was in Katrina. You were in Katrina. Everybody who's listening from New Orleans, you were in Katrina. We all got our own stories, right? But I became more of a humble person after Katrina. My father and my uncle and my grandmother became stingy, greedy bastards after Katrina. That is a fact. Something changed in their brains where they were like, "That's mine. Everything's mine." I don't know, like just real strange trauma behavior. Okay. And even Momo drank for a little while. So that's saying a lot. Like it was everybody handle it their own way. I do not point fingers how people handle it. That's not what I'm saying. It's that she saw an opportunity when he became the potential power of attorney she could be for him, which nobody was. So I was his daughter. I'm next to kin, and basically I wanted to probably make logical decisions. But I was a brand new mother of a 1-year-old at that point, and there was like no fucking way. I'm pretty sure, was it 3 years ago? It might have been 3 years ago. I remember he was young, and I was like, "There's no way I'm taking me and him and dealing with that guy and trying to. I'm not going to go there to sabotage the shit, but I don't want to be involved with it."
Right.
That's frankly it. Like, and I told my family when I was 13, I'll just make it real clear publicly that I wanted nothing to do with an inheritance or any wills or stuff, because for me, it felt so much of a damaged, torn fabric of that family that money wasn't something I wanted to hold at the end of the experience. Like, period. And I went into hiding with my mother for 4 years until she found out she had breast cancer and then contacted my grandmother and said, "Hey, so we're here." And then my mother, what was it? 5 years later after that would have been, yeah. 5 years after that, my mom's cancer got much more aggressive. We moved to California. We couldn't make it very long. We moved back to Louisiana, and I met Marie here and had a successful high school, end of a middle school, and successful 4 years of high school. Had great connections. Still have wonderful, like, family, real family connections. And so at that time, experiencing Louisiana and my father through even having the restraining orders and whatnot, my grandmother just always was trying to go against the grain. Like, you asked me the first question, like, how did she feel about your mom? Like, did she care? She cared only until the minute she was no longer part of the family. And then the day my mom passed away, which is just a mind fuck, all of this. You can remember. The day my mom passed away, it was like she just thought, well, now she's out of the way. And then my great grandmother literally told me that, your mother was a problem. They all looked at her and told me finally after my mom had passed, this is a public statement I've never made. I've probably told you private, Marie, but everybody in my family at that point, within probably like the first week that my mom passed, they were like, your mom brainwashed you. Your father never did anything. Just admit it. Just say it out loud. And I was like, I'm fucking dealing with grief and my mom and fuck all of you. And I had to live with my grandmother at that time. I had already been indebted to a vehicle to her. I was working 2 jobs and going to school full time. It just was a weird thing. And I was always on occasion see him drive up, and I would do everything I could if it meant hiding in the bathroom. If he would try to come and see, because there was no active restraining order after I was about maybe 18, I would assume.
Yeah.
And my mom passed away when I was 18. So I just thought, I'm an adult now, I'll fucking handle my shit, right? And do you remember him coming to my birthday party by chance, drunk?
Nah,
My 18th birthday party?
I don't know. I don't really
Oh my
remember at this.
God. He started a fight in front of everybody with mom. Yeah, it's such a great thing. So that's what I'm saying. And it's anyway, there's bad person mentality there. And then there's also like the question we started this episode series with, that is why we've had to make it such a big point to put all this back in perspective. Because everybody should ask this question. Does mental health create addiction? Or does addiction create mental health
Issues.
Right. That is my facts, that I am now lost everybody in the radius of like having to be sweet about how I feel about the A word that was 100% put upon me, and I was a child and did not ask for any of that. And definitely don't teach my child to think that he's okay and he's a pray for anyone. uh I'm a very tight gripping mother because of the things that have happened to me. And I mean, growing up in a Christian home probably had some good things, but a lot of more. I wasn't allowed to spill my feelings. I wasn't allowed to say, like, I really asked God many times why this happened to me. I never asked my mother. Like, that's fucked up. you know?
I mean,
So
religion has
go ahead.
a kind of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know your dad's story really. You know,
Right.
I know brief little parts that I've heard over the years, but I mean, religion and Metairie have, it was a crazy time. The Catholics, the generation before us, our parents' generation, and the generation right before that, it's kind
Right.
of crazy how they really were into this. And I wouldn't be surprised if these boys were getting molested in these Catholic.
He went to every single private, like he was in the Jesuit or all the fucking whatever they are. He was all of it. Every single special upper scale school he was paid to get into, he got into. And he was kicked out of every single one. And unfortunately, and it was drug abuse issues and it was violence. It was just belligerence. Like, it's very hard for me to see past. Like, I'm well aware he's mentally ill, and I'm well aware that something created that. But I also believe you cannot. So now he's went into his life to point fingers and say that he's holier than thou, and so it's
Well, of course.
meaning he literally is. I don't know how to put this. All right, he has a female in his life right now, from what I understand, and I'm not far off from this, who is easily been abused in the past, so she's easily prey now. So he has a pattern of hurting women. The woman that my mother um had the blessing to speak with at one point, her situation of being married to my father after my mom, like the third wife, she's in hiding right now, so I will not give her name or anything, or to protect her identity. She's in hiding because of the things that he did to her. And then the fourth fiance, I don't think she was a wife, that didn't last very long, and she was a bodybuilder, and that was the woman. My mom would make little snark remarks, which I think were pretty sweet compared to what she could say with what he put her through, about, well, she's a bodybuilder, good, she can kick his ass now, no more violence. It's ridiculous. And then the most recent situation is now a hospice nurse, and from what I understand, she's easily been abused several times. So like I just don't, I can't, and I actually spoke to her face to face, woman to woman, and was like, you're in a very dangerous situation right now, lady. I would really rethink your situations. And me, you might think he's handsome, whatever it is that get you happy, but this is not a safe environment, I'll tell you now. And for what I understand, there has been a lot of smooching over the years. Momo's only told me parts and pieces, and I just don't even want to know. I just don't even want to know. But I don't know. It's hard to understand that. You know what I mean? And then I am a mother of a little boy that he only knows bits and pieces of my situation. So it's like, how do we explain this? I'm gonna tell him just like I told you folks, but it's rough because that's like similar to the feeling I feel like if I was listening to it, of being related to a serial killer or something. Like, they're just bad people out there, unfortunately, that make good children. I don't know. you know? It's
Yeah,
fucked up.
everybody has the right to be themselves, and so sometimes people do bad things, and sometimes people like to do good things.
Right.
And there's always a mixture because we're all human, but
Right.
people have a preference to. I found that there was like three different types of craziness,
Right.
and I came up with the idea that there's constructive craziness, destructive craziness, and then there's just kind of craziness,
Right.
or in the middle, like chaos.
Chaos for real. And like, honestly, when I asked my mom at 12 in those very, very, because you have to understand, people, she had breast cancer for 9 years. So those 9 years went by. Like, I was just talking to somebody the other day about it. The movie Stepmom is the best example of how my mom kept preparing me. Like, she would try to be nice to these other women because she knew in some way they were dealing with whatever his behavior was. And she was just happy that, like, she wanted to leave a good grace on her children. And so she would teach us the best she could about the good things she remembered about my father, and the bad things she would only answer if we asked, which is, I think, the right way.
Yeah,
But, you know, I don't know. It's
Sometimes you just don't need to know everything, you know, when it comes
I
to what you've been through and stuff like it, but sometimes it's good. I don't know, but
I feel like he's a
bringing it up,
wandering soul on this earth, and if he's listening, this is truly how I feel. And I'll say this because I'm sure others listening may have some similar understanding of this kind of
it's good
when
to get
you've dealt.
out now that I
I
think.
just can't. I just can't wait till he's not somebody I have to worry about showing up at my door. That's a sad situation.
You know, for all the people out there that went through something similar to this, you know, there's got to be
Right.
somebody else that
That's what
understands
I'm saying.
completely, like, or if not on a whole nother level, you know.
Right. And by the time I was 8 years old, in the mix in the mints, excuse me, mixed mists of dealing with my mom finding out she had hepatitis C, I found out I had hepatitis C at the same time. So it was from 6 then to 8 trying to be cured, and then being a make-a-wish kid. And at this whole time, my father never tried to send a card, never tried to say like, I'm worried about my daughter, nothing like that. It was complete
Maybe he felt
silence.
guilty, you know. Some
No,
people that
I
when they're
can't
guilty, they
accept
cop
that.
out, you know.
This is the thing that therapy did so good for me, and I want listeners out there to hear this. I am not a doctor. I can't give you medical advice. I'm not trying to tell you how to think. But for me, the best advice therapists gave me were, you're not supposed to parent your parents.
Yeah, you're
They were
right.
supposed to be your parents, and there is no justification for the things they put on your back that were not your responsibility, including the that they did to you. And let's make it clear for substance, the abuse they did to you, anything they mirrored for you. It's not your fault. And that's important. I don't have any freak. I'm a very strong person because of that statement. I never felt I never felt like that. Why did it happen to me? I had a lot of therapy, you know, a
Right.
lot. So I don't know. I think that's the other thing is if you haven't dealt with grief with a therapist, or you haven't dealt with the the substance of what happens with substance abuse. If you haven't dealt with that, meaning the neglect that could happen, the emotional abuse that could happen from those people. And honestly, when I confronted him about all of this to his face, his response to me is, I have no memory, but if I did that, I'm sorry. And I said, well, thank you for saying that. And he said, but I know I didn't do it. So I'm only saying it so that you hear it. And I was like, excuse me? So I didn't accept it after the second statement. I was like, you're out of your mind. Gone. So, I mean, I don't know. I want people out there to feel free to add to your own situations and share with us your story. Um, like I said, I knew in my life from an early age going to be, like potentially short lived, that I had to spell out what like my story was. I always
How
knew
did
that I
you
had to.
get Denver to parachute?
How did I get to parachute? Well, that's a good fucking point, Marie. In the middle of us hiding, we were in Denver. And then my mom, after 3 years and finding out we both had the liver condition that I mentioned, HCV or hepatitis C, unknown where we got it officially. Um, the doctors and whatnot were like, you probably need to start taking treatment and doing whatnot. And they found, she found that like Western Colorado, where I live, is kind of just the most peaceful place. And at the time, she didn't know she was going to get cancer yet. She only had a liver disease, and she worked at, just trying to do the treatments. And at the time, I know she applied for disability, but did not get it. She wasn't like going to go on that route officially. In fact, she was so depressed about even needing to like move away from a city and being a workaholic, like, I am. So it was hard for her to like let that ring spoke. But out where we live now, there was nothing out here. We had yodeling on the radio. It was just no music, nothing, and no internet at the time. But we move out here, and we moved to Silt, Colorado, which is kind of in between Glenwood Springs, or let's put it like this, people who are more broad. Aspen meets almost to the Utah border. We were like in the middle of that, some odd. And it was a small little town that Doc Holliday, I believe, was the one who is buried in the mountain over there. So some very big historic names in this area, but in Garfield County itself. And my mother, after we moved to Silt, it might have been a few months, found out she had breast cancer. And the lump she found was the size of a peach. And it happened overnight. She had had a mammogram. It was clean. And like, I'm not making it up. It was literally how she explained it. It was like, I had the mammogram, and like maybe 5 days after, I'm in the shower and feel this giant lump. And that's it. Just, it was a very progressive cancer, and the cancer went to her lymph nodes immediately. She had a double mastectomy by choice immediately. She didn't even need to remove her breast. They could have just worked on it, but she's like, forget it, take them. And then went through 175 treatments of radiation and 4 rounds of chemo. And this is all done in this area, in this valley. And we moved all the way slowly to where I live now in this town. After she had her breast removed, she had a lawsuit because he did massive damage to her tissue, and she had lots of infections, and she did a malpractice, and because it was necessary to even get any real after treatment, he kept blowing her off. So she had to go to an attorney. It was terrible. So that's when she applied for disability. Wait, what?
Did the attorney end up helping?
He paid her $75,000. That's what he paid her to fix her boobs.
That's still terrible, though.
Right. And she had insurance, good insurance. My stepdad at the time worked for Coors, the beer company, and he had money. He was doing well. He worked just in the good departments, like, I don't know, shipping, but that's a big ass department out here for beer. Quality control, let's put it like that. Anyway, and so his money was making it, but then they were starting to have problems in their situation. This is my stepdad that came in the picture a year after my little brother was born, and he was a past love. I should do like a documentary of that part of it because I have pictures of him from when they were back in love. This is before he's the first love or the second love. Her first love was Jack. Her second love was Henry. Her third was my father. So when she divorced my father, Henry came back and was like, I love you. I've always loved you. And he like totally was like, please, I'll move wherever you want to go. So he was a Cajun from the West Bank. I mean, not Puerto Rican, but not Hispanic, Filipino, dark skinned. And and I have to state this, that's probably why I'm so blown away when I see interracial situations. I have never been weirded out by that. I didn't think of it strange as my stepdad looked different. Nothing. Never even hit me. And I was in Colorado where at the time it wasn't cool. They call him all the words. So it was a very weird upbringing because we were like such a strict Christian family, and yet we were dealing with the politics at the time of the 90s. But anyway, we had moved to Rifle, and then they decided to get a divorce. So they separated. They lived in one side. She lived in another side of town with, us. And he didn't have any relationship to my brother. He was a stepdad to the both of us. And he really enjoyed being a bachelor. I'll say that. But he really enjoyed the company of my mom. And I don't mean in a romantic way. It was like literally they didn't have the connection anymore, romance. He just liked the routine of it. And so not to take care, it was just to be with her. And she was just so sick of it. It was a sad situation. And they were married, I think, for 4 years before it crumbled. And when we moved to Rifle, which is the town next to me, I am the only reason that we moved to Parachute. I just saw some of these double wides coming out in the 90s, and I was like, those are beautiful. And at the time, they were amazing for like, compared to stick houses, we had an incredible double wide. So my mom had held on to that $75,000, was going through a divorce. There was no money in our family. So she wasn't getting money from the divorce, and she wasn't like that. But she was like, let me take that money, because I said, Mom, let's just go look. Like, my son would so be that in my situation of making a big decision. I'm like, can we just go look? And we look at this one house and we fall in love with the whole floor plan. And my mom's like, I don't know how to explain it to you. She just played it real closely. So she started driving me and my brother around. My brother had to be like 2.5, maybe 3 at the time. Yeah, maybe 4, maybe 3 or 4. And, you know, she's got full-blown cancer at this point. And she's fighting. She's bald. She doesn't have reconstruction, you know. She's dealing with just coming out of the infections. And she makes the decision, I'm going to take that 75,000, plop it down. I'm going to plop some of it on furniture from like Sears catalog and Christmas. We're going to have the prettiest Christmas of our life. We're going to buy this house. We're not going to own the land. We're going to buy this house. It's done. It's paid for. I own the house. Okay. We moved to Parachute, to the mountain, to the cliff. We got to choose after like 20, I don't know, maybe 200 plots that had no, this is a modular home. So obviously it's like a trailer park, but it's not gross. It's beautiful. And my mom was like, just doing the things that you should do. You're supposed to live. You're supposed to be with your kids and think nothing but good thoughts. And at that time in our lives, my brother, myself, life was perfect. It didn't matter if my mom was dying. It didn't matter if I was dying, because I technically was. They, at that point, at my age, I was 9. They had just been a year coming out of taking treatments, interferon, if you guys know what that is, which is injections you got to give yourself in your legs 3 times a week. And I was doing that in 1st grade. So I was just a year out of
You
that.
also had a brace, didn't you?
The brace, I wore it 23 hours a day. It was a full casted brace. So plastic, I don't know, plexi, I guess it would be, like thick white plastic. I'll look for pictures, but yeah, I wore that because I had scoliosis, and that's a whole nother moment. I have done videos about it. I'll try to link them below, but the scoliosis had progressed from age 5 to age 13, from a 52-degree curve to a 97-degree curve in that many years. And I wore a brace 23 hours a day. So it didn't work. So by the time I was 13, they did emergency surgery. And the only reason the doctors realized the brace had not worked is they put the pads on the wrong side of the brace. So if you watch the video, I will find and link below. So it was a class action, but it was an emergency surgery. I went to a 97-degree curve. So my spine was a complete S, and my upper right shoulder, where my spine was curving to the S, was moving into my lungs so much that I would stand and I would if I moved a certain way.
Oh man, that's scary.
So yeah, it was. And like, you got to understand, I still had a good attitude through all that crazy. Okay. And I still had lots of friends. I just dealt with shit on my own quietly. Nobody ever knew that I was like getting shots at night and going to school in the morning, you know, and I was trying to get rid of my disease. Or strapping a brace underneath these cute clothes. My mom made sure I didn't feel uncomfortable. Like, she was an active mom. And again, throughout that entire extent of my life, my abusive father wasn't trying to say, hi, how you doing? How's my kids? Never. What he would do is call after she got back in touch with my grandmother. My grandmother gave the phone number right over to him, and he would call and harass my mom. And my mom would sit on the phone and pray and speak in tongues over him. As he was on the phone, she would do it in front of us on the speakerphone and be like, in the blood of Jesus, may the God take that negativity out of you. It was incredible.
So how did your mom feel about her illness, you know, with her religion? Like, did she feel...
Actually, that was the one thing in her life, I think. At the beginning, she held on really tight. In the middle, she completely went spiritual. She completely had healers over at her house all the time, in that house in Parachute. Crystal, Reiki, she went completely vegan. She did everything but go to church, because she was over that shit. She felt like God had fucked her over, but she never said it out loud till I was older, when she was like, get really high with me and be like, listen, I feel like I've been such a good a faithful disciple to the Lord, and I feel like he is what is the word she used? He has forsaken me.
Oh, wow.
Which is intense. You know, I mean, my mom was not, I mean, I feel compelled to read you guys a poem. I'm going to read you guys a poem. Can I read that poem, Marie? Because I really think it explains my mom's soul. She was just this simple. She's just this pretty, like as a person in her soul. And I watched her get like completely removed from reality from medications they had to put her on. Let me make sure I'm not losing you. Hold on. Oops. Here we go. Good. I have power. Like she was on so many different pain meds that at one point she just didn't even know what day it was. She'd sleep through the day. It was horrible, you know? And at one point, one of those days at the end of her life, before we figured out that she had it progressed liver cancer and bone cancer and brain cancer, before we knew, she started just writing random shit and throwing it places. And I would steal them because I thought they were great. And one of them on the counter one day, she must have done it when I was sleeping because it was the next morning I found it. It wasn't left for me. It was just something she wrote. And I'll feature it on my Instagram for you guys to see. But this is how it goes. And she wrote this. It's her poem. I like a nice day where the warmth of the sun is felt and the cool of the morning dew is still on your mind. As night falls and fills your world, shutting out the light and blanketing you with darkness, sprinkled with the twilight of stars far above you. I like a day that reminds you of your youth, fun, and anticipation of much more to come. And that was written February 22nd, 2000. And like I said, I did Katrina happened and everything, and I was with Marie here when I found this in the papers later. In 2008 is when I got that box, but with all the things. But 2009, a year later, I reviewed that paper and I was like, we're going to make a plaque. We're going to honor this because it's just how probably in her mind she would think, you know, like you just think of everything except the things. You just invoke it, you know? It's a feeling, it's an expression, it's so many things, you know? I'm gonna roll up another one. I hope I'm not wearing everyone out here. Please add some thoughts to it because my brain is like, holy shit. It's a hard one to share all this with everybody. Like the main point is that I say this story in parts, but I've never in my life completely said it in one sitting. So what do you, Marie, remember from the many years you experienced things? Please.
I mean, I think that the mental health issues stemmed further back than your dad. I mean, just knowing your grandmother, no disrespect, but
Right.
she was very easily able to turn it off and go somewhere else, it seems like.
Well said.
If things
Well
that she
said.
didn't like, she would just be like, oh, Rachel, that's enough of that. And then want to talk about what was on TV or.
She never, and I'm not making this up. You guys can, if you know my grandmother, if you know me from high school or anything, I have shared this with people. I'm sure you'll remember this after I say it, Marie. My grandmother never watched the end of a movie because she got anxiety. She didn't want to know how it ended. What the hell is that? That's strange mental health to me. I'm like, you're really what?
Well, I mean, there's different versions. Like my version is when a movie's on, I can't sit for too long before I feel uncomfortable and have to move, and it's like I can't get into it or feel comfortable enough to grasp everything sometimes.
Are you a book reader instead?
No, I like, I guess, like stimulating things. It had to be like a fast-paced movie. Like I like not all or only thrashers or slashers, whatever they call it.
Right.
Just like fast-paced stuff, exciting stuff. But even then, sometimes I just can't watch the whole thing.
I mean, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Marie. I'm rolling this up. I'll shut up.
Yeah, but it's a weird thing. I guess it's like that I got PTSD or something. I can't sit for too long without feeling like anxious for some reason. Like,
I'm not a health professional, but wouldn't we all agree here, including yourself, that your PTSD stems from plenty of family problems?
yeah, I
Um,
guess I just don't feel comfortable anywhere, Not very
I
often.
was told by a therapist, more than one, that my PTSD is the closest to a military, non-civilian PTSD as you could have. Like, I am so chill about the war, it's not even funny. And I guess so. I don't know. Like, I can't. You can't unsee a memory. You can't unsee it 50 billion times. Especially. That's fucking PTSD at its finest. You
Yeah,
know? Even grief can do that. Like where you keep seeing your family. It is real.
I think I have a lot of memories that I don't even recall that life changing. I guess you could say.
Right. I don't know.
I try and write stuff off or undermine things, just to like cope with it. I guess
Mm-hmm. I want to see if
it
I can
helps.
share this. I want to give a few odes to my mom real quick, just to give the viewers an idea. I'm going to attempt to do something. I have set it all up. Let's make sure it works. Because I posted something on my Instagram today, and I want to pull it up and show you guys. Hopefully it'll work. Let's attempt it now. Share screen. And I'm sure, like, honestly, I'll probably do more chit chats about my mother's stories because I have plenty, but here we go. So I posted this morning. I hope you guys actually go and follow us because I've been posting things for the lovely Marie Tarot 504. Please go follow her. Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so let me see if this will work. So this is me, I think around 4. And this is pretty much what my whole family, this is the example. I actually had a friend the other day mention, shout out to Mac, that from the view of my family growing up, it looked like such a good situation, like such a happy family, when I was actively being traumatized at this age, probably daily. I was being kidnapped at this age, all kinds of fun stuff. They were fighting for at least a year and a half before the divorce was fully final. So it was a nightmare. This is my mother and me at, I think, Lafayette Park, probably on the lake. Isn't there a big lake there?
Yes.
There is. Yeah. I think it was paddle boats. Me, very tiny. I think I might have been a year and a half here. Oh, look at the awesome comments. We're getting all kinds of nice viewers. I appreciate all of you. It's been wonderful to see all the support. So this is my monster, my father, my mother. I probably was a year old there. So from the perspective of everybody in my mom's church and everything, she told me that she kept it all to herself. So if you didn't see the last episode, go check it out. Hold on, let me click out of here. Say that one more time.
So that was very common in Metairie, any type of abuse that was going on. And probably all over the place. They were stepping into a different time at that point. The 80s and the 90s were really a different time where women were, I believe, starting to step out. And I know that we're going to talk about this in many more episodes to come.
Oops, sorry, I was on mute. My bad. I was going to say yes. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I think that me and your path could have crossed many times too, because I was supposed to go to the same high school that you went to initially and things like that. So I feel like friends are really what got me through it all the years. When it comes to all the things, trying to normalize it. I never really reached out and said, does this sound normal to you? Like, I think you just witnessed me being fucked up and you're like, what's going on? What the fuck is up? Like, I would smoke cigarettes and sneak behind cars. Remember that? I'm like, I'm stressed out. I can't even
I
explain
think
it.
the thing is that both of us had our own situations and we were coming from different kinds of abuse, but also the same kind. And we just related and we knew not to ask the questions.
Right.
You know, so we made each other feel comfortable because, you know, your mama and my Mimi were very much in the same time and from the same mindset, and we were just
Right.
kind of coasting through our childhood issues, and we were able to recognize that in each other very early on, I believe. And
Right.
so it was more of an acceptance where, you know, a lot of people our age weren't finding the thrill in going to Walmart and looking at everything and then putting a lot of it back and buying what we could afford because we didn't have the money. We were working. You know,
Right.
we weren't getting it from anywhere else. We were both very much workaholics and knew that we had to push forward. And I think that we were able to see that trauma and
And you
bond.
were living with your grandmother too at the same time.
Yes.
I didn't feel completely alone in that one. I'll say that completely. I mean, there'll probably be many more interesting conversations that we will touch on about what happened after my mother passed away, because I think me and Marie became very, very close friends after that. And that's probably the dynamic of listeners who don't understand our friendship is that it goes way back before anybody and it was a sisterhood early. So I appreciate your friendship. I want to say that, and I appreciate you allowing me to.
Appreciate yours too. We go through our roller coaster called life, but we're hanging in there.
Hey, I think it's our Italian roots that we've had ups and downs, but it is a small world, and that's the other part. We'll talk about other stories about small world in the New Orleanses, and we appreciate you guys listening tonight. I really appreciate everybody allowing me to share my story. If you did get to the end of this, let me know. Say hi. Please go follow the lovely Marie. I would like to just encourage you guys also to see that. Let me pull this back up a second, because we are going to continue to do this kind of setup every time. Hold on, let me pull it back up real fast.
And
Share.
also, if there's a topic that you would like us to cover, or if you have a story that you think that needs to be said, we do want to provide an open space for anybody that's dealing with anything that they're having a time. And sometimes you just really need somebody to understand you. And I
Right,
think
or
that we
let
can
you tell
provide
your
that.
story. That's right. That's the truth. So if you're seeing on the screen right now, this is the main Miss Chronic Chronicles. But if you click on these little links below, you will see that both of these are kind of mirroring each other's, but there are some more interesting things. Like this post in particular, I wanted to feature just to remind you guys that the blue dots that you see here are when we go live. So we're already on the 15th, is it not? I think it's the 15th.
Yes.
So we will be back on the 17th. I hope you guys are ready for our next interesting topic and all the fun things. But I appreciate everybody who has come on
Thank you so much
tonight.
for sharing this story, Rachel. I know it was hard, and I hope it was a release for your soul.
I'm glad to
Keep
have
on
said
moving.
I am done chatting about it. I will point to this video in the future. But everybody have a great day, night, wherever you're at. Do you have anything to say, Tukey? Or did we lose him?
We've lost them. I hope
That's all right.
everybody
Have a
stay
good night,
blessed and
everyone.
blessed be.
Thank you. Bye.